welcome to my podcast, Cool Down with Abhay, where I bring in different people from the sports industry to come and engage in conversation with me so that you and I can learn more about the Indian sports ecosystem. Let's get right into it. So, hey guys, welcome to a new episode of Cool Down with Abhay. And today my guest is Meghana Gundlapally, who's a rhythmic gymnast who has represented our country in multiple tournaments around the world, some of them being the Commonwealth and the Nationals, and many more tournaments around the world. I'm really excited to learn about her journey and some insights from her career. So, hi Meghna, it's really nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi. Okay. So, how I typically like to start off the podcast is by asking my guests how their journey into sports began. So, how did you discover your sport?
I actually started it because of my younger brother. He was the one who first started going for gymnastic lessons in Hyderabad at the LB Stadium. And I used to just accompany him, but I used to wait outside the stadium. I never went inside for class. And I remember one day, so there were these like two small windows next to the doors from which, you could see through inside. And I remember seeing one day that, they were jumping on the trampoline. And that was something that I found really exciting and really fun. And yeah, I was a very active kid when I was young. So that really excited me and that really kind of grabbed my attention. And that's how I got into the classes. So I asked mom to join me as well. And then the next day I was in class. So that's how I started gymnastics. But when I joined, I was around 11 and a half, 12 years, which is usually old for this sport.
Okay. So, what's the age that people normally join the sport?
You can start from the age of 3. From the age of 3, you can, it's a sport that you start pretty young and you usually retire also pretty young. So because I was too old, the coach suggested I do rhythmic gymnastics as opposed to the regular artistic gymnastics. Okay. So yeah, that's how I got to know that a sport like rhythmic gymnastics exists.
Nice. That's really fascinating. So, for people that maybe don't know about the sport, what is rhythmic gymnastics? How would you explain it to them? I know that you said it's basically a sport of beauty kind of thing, right? Yeah. So, can you explain it to those who may not know?
I think the only other sport other than synchronized swimming that is an all-women sport. So there are men who train and compete, but it's only in a few countries in Europe. This is largely a women-oriented sport. And I would say it's one of the most beautiful, one of the most graceful sports you'll ever see. Because, it's not just our performance, because we perform to 4 different apparatus. We use 4 different equipments: the hoop, ball, clubs, and ribbon. And we choreograph a routine of 1 minute 30 seconds to music. So it's basically like a performance that we do. And yeah, right from the choreography to the musics we choose to, our hair and makeup, which also carry points for us, and our costumes. Everything is really glamorous and it's really beautiful. And it's really mesmerizing to watch. When you see it, it's like you're seeing a story. It's not just a competition that you see.
Yes, I was going to ask, when you're competing, what are the criteria among which you are judged during a competition?
Right now, there are 2 criteria: the execution and the difficulty. So the difficulty is basically all the elements that we perform. So within that 1 minute 30 seconds, we have to try and perform as many elements that we can, which are again divided into body difficulties, apparatus handling, risk, and dancing steps. So all of these 4, they are combined, and we add as many of these as we can. So again, they have a specific criteria, so many number of difficulties and things like that. That is a little more technical, but these are the 4 main things on which we are judged. This is the difficulty part, and the execution part is if whether we do it without falls or how our lines are. So basically we call them lines, but it's how straight your legs are, how straight your hands are, how pointed your toes are. So all of that comes under the execution. And of course, performing without falls will give us a better execution score.
It's really interesting. That shows that as an athlete of the sport that you're under pressure in so many different elements of your sport. So that's really interesting. You mentioned earlier that you got into the sport when you were in an early age, like before you could learn the basics compared to everyone else your age. So how did you deal with that challenge?
I don't know. I mean, I never saw it as, I never actually, honestly, I never realized it because, like, now that I think of it, everywhere that I went for training, I was one of the oldest people in the group, because I was the oldest one learning the basics in the basics group. So, yeah, I never really realized it. I guess I just enjoyed training and, I enjoyed myself during the whole process.
Nice. So you've gone on to compete around the world, and so far all the people I've had on the podcast have been people related to team sports. So something unique I kind of wanted to ask you is, being in an individual sport, how important is your relationship with your coach to you, and how much does it actually play on your performance?
And I think your relationship with your coach is not something just for an individual sport, even for team sports. I think any athlete, it is important for them to have that relationship with the coach, and that relationship should be in such a way where you are, it's a two-way communication kind of a thing. Like the coach should understand the player, because not every player is the same. They should understand the player, like what helps them, what doesn't help. Maybe something that fits for me doesn't fit for another athlete. So that communication needs to be there, that the athlete should also feel free and open to be able to talk to their coach about anything. And I think one thing that I have noticed, like with my coaches and the coaches that I have trained with, most of them, and I would say all of them are coaches who are like, when we are in training, they are my coaches. They are strict and they will push me to my limit when I am in training. But the second we are out of the stadium, they are more like friends to me, Yes. And that's the kind of relationship that any coach athlete should have, because the athlete, if they're scared of their coach, they will not be able to share anything, and that will not help in improving their own performances.
That's right. That's an interesting perspective. I asked because I feel in an individual sport, like you said, it's important in a team sport as well. But in an individual sport, it's way more concentrated. You can't hide anything, and it's way more pressure on you, in my opinion. Yeah, right. So something I wanted to ask was, like you mentioned, like when we spoke about the judging of the sport, I think as an athlete, you're going to be criticized on so many small different elements of your competition, basically. So how do you deal with criticism?
I have always I have received a lot of negative criticism, and I think I've received more of negative criticism than the positive, especially in the early days. And like even today, a lot of people tell me that I'm not fit for the sport, or like I don't have the right body type for this sport. But I guess I just take in the information that is going to help me. Like suppose there is something that I can use to improve myself, I will use that. I will take that criticism. But again, there's also a lot of negative criticism that comes in that you shouldn't really pay attention to. So yeah, that's basically how I deal with criticism. I don't think I ever feel like demotivated or anything like that hearing the negative criticism. I just take in what helps me, and the things that are not needed for me, I don't like pay attention to it.
That's good. That's a very optimistic approach towards it. I hope many people learn from that as well. So you've represented our country in the Commonwealth Games in 2018. So I wanted to learn a little about your experience, like your journey to the Commonwealth, and what was it like to actually represent the country. Tell me about your experience.
The Commonwealth Games were actually one of my biggest games, and that I started my preparation in the August of 2017 for it. So I started training with this coach from Greece, who was an Olympian in the 2016 Rio Olympics.
What was her name?
Her name was Varvara Filiou.
Okay.
So yeah, she had just retired, and like, I saw her post on Instagram that, she posted that she was retiring. And then I wrote to her saying, I see that you have retired, and I'm a player from India, and I want to prepare for the Commonwealth Games. And I asked her if, she can train me until then. So she wrote back, and then she was like, I'll have to see you first. You'll have to come to Greece for a month, and then, I'll have to see how you work, and, if I can train you or not, and then we can go forward. So yeah, in August, I think I just packed my bags and I left to Greece to, attend that 1 month camp. And then after that, she did agree to train me until until the Commonwealth Games. And yeah, so my preparation was with her. And that was one of the first times that I was competing at such a high level. So before that, I played only in the Asian Championship. So I participated in just one Asian Championship before that in 2016. And yeah. So
Actually, before moving on to the actual competition, what was it like after your regular training procedure, and then after your new coach got involved, you got to be trained by an Olympian. So how did that change your entire training procedure?
So it gave me a perspective that I didn't have before, because she herself trained in the Olympic Center in Russia, which is the best in the world, for rhythmic gymnastics. So it was something that I had not experienced before. I mean, I had been training with international coaches previously, but it was most of the time in a group or something like that. So this was the first, I think this was the first time that I was training one-to-one, and for such a long period of time. So it gave me a different perspective training wise. And also, I got to learn a lot of things, like not just in the game, but like, also as a person, as a human being. There was a lot of things that, she taught me during those couple of months.
Nice. Okay, so if I'm correct, your coach actually didn't attend the Commonwealth Games with you, right? So how did you deal with that entire challenge?
So that was like a whole other story. And, we reached there, I think about a week early. So my coach, she was there in Australia. She was there in Gold Coast. And she was like living like 5 minutes from the athlete village. So her accommodation, her travel, everything, my parents had spent the money. And yeah, we reached like a week early. And then, I tried to do everything after getting to the village, speaking with the managers and whoever was, in charge for the Indian team to be able to get an accreditation for her. But it was, they were like, it is not possible unless it came before, with the list, list that they made, that they sent prior to the competition. So yeah, it was not possible for her to come for any of my training sessions because I was there a week early. I still had to continue my training. So what we used to do in trainings was, I used to get the other volunteers or like, the other players, whoever were there, they were quite helpful, the volunteers, the staff, and even the coaches and players from the other countries also, they really helped me a lot during that time.
Oh, that's great.
It's really wonderful. It's something that, I guess you don't get to see everywhere, that sportsman spirit and all of that. So yeah, I used to get, they used to, record my videos when I was training. So like, we have our routine. So they used to record I used to do one routine. They used to record the video. I used to send that video to my coach. She used to see it. And then we used to be on call and she used to see the routine and she used to tell me the corrections and then I used to repeat it again.
Wow, that must have been like such a strenuous process.
It was stressful, yeah. And other than that, I had to do like, a couple of paperworks and, last minute paperwork that is there for, the competition order and all of that. I had to do it myself. And that was something that a coach was supposed to do.
Oh,
and even on the day of the competition, I was like, so my coach was in the stadium. She was sitting in the stands.
I mean, at least you still had her support in some way or another then.
Yeah, I know. I did. But again, it's not the same thing, more than the coaching in those last few days, it's more of the psychological support that you have, you have that in your mind that yes, there is someone standing behind you. So like during the competition also, like just before they used to call my name, I used to be on call with my coach and then like, she used to calm me down through the phone. And
nice.
yeah. So that's how it went. It was actually not my best competition, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I mean, there was so much going on, and I think I managed to do what I could at that moment. But yeah, the experience is something that I will remember for my life, and it is unforgettable. But competition wise, it wasn't my best.
Yeah, it's okay. There's still the opportunity to represent your country. That would have been amazing, right?
That was definitely a dream come true for me.
Right. So something I wanted to ask about the sport, since it's not such a popular sport in our country. If it's not cricket, it doesn't get that much support. So I want to target that now. What kind of what kind of challenges have you faced, like in terms of like infrastructure or facilities or anything like that, throughout your career?
We have beautiful stadiums, and the infrastructure is beautiful in India, but we don't have the specific equipment for rhythmic gymnastics. So for us, I mean, the only equipment that we would be needing is a mat. The rest of the equipment we can buy it ourselves, but something that we cannot buy ourselves is a mat, because it's a huge mat. It's an entire carpet, right?
Yeah.
So that is something that I never had proper access to. So there are a few mats in India. Most of them are in Delhi. I mean, they are being used at the IG Stadium in Delhi, and then I think there was one or two that came in for national games in Kerala, and yeah, a few places have it. Hyderabad has one, but that is from like the 2002 national games. So it's a pretty old carpet. And yeah, I think that was the biggest problem that I faced. And also, like, in 2018 our government actually did approve a mat for me. So
Okay.
for the Commonwealth games, they approved a mat so that I can train on it, but that mat comes in the end of 2018 and it is in storage even now. So like, it's
Oh,
nowhere.
so you didn't even get to use it at any
No,
point.
I haven't used it even once. It's just there, it's sitting in storage.
What a waste! Oh my God. So,
Yeah. So
so
like
what?
we have the infrastructure, we have the you know we have the capacity to be able to get those mats that are required, but it's just that they are not being used in the right way.
Okay, so what kind of support do you think someone who was like yourself when they were probably 10 to 15 years old, what kind of support do you think they should have gotten or should be able to get now?
Starting from the most basic, it is the infrastructure and the coaching. There are coaches, but most of them are in Maharashtra, Delhi, Punjab. Not They are to the north side, and most of them, yeah, it's towards that side. So like in south of India, I think there is a center coming up in Bangalore. But other than that, I mean, I am not aware of any other coaching centers specific for rhythmic gymnastic. Again, artistic gymnastic is there in every state, every major city and all, but rhythmic gymnastic is still not that developed. So that is one thing, the infrastructure. And I think one more thing that's really missing is the exposure for the kids, because we don't have that many competitions or tournaments that happen. We just have the school nationals, the federation nationals, and recently they started the Kalo India. But these are all tournaments that happen once a year, and with just once a year, that kind of exposure will not help the kids improve the game. Like, I had the opportunity to be able to play in multiple club level tournaments. They're not high level, the club level, but I have played in multiple tournaments. Like when I was in Italy last year, I used to go for a competition every week. So you learn to control your nerves, you learn to control that situation, that environment of being in a competition. That is something that is really lacking for most of the young kids, for young gymnasts.
So just now when you spoke about the competition, something I was wondering is in an annual year for you, like what is your calendar like in terms of competition?
So my calendar would basically be, the major tournaments are kind of fixed because that comes through the international federation. And like, we usually, I sit with my coach and then we decide which tournaments we want to go to and which ones we don't. And yeah, those are usually the ones that are like fixed. And other than that, like I said, the club level tournaments, wherever I go for training, that's the best part in Europe, there are hundreds of tournaments that happen. Like you can go to one every week. And in Europe, it's like, nearby. You can like, just take a bus, travel for like 2 hours, and then you're at a different country, different city where you can, compete. So yeah, those small ones, I try to play more of them as the major tournaments come closer, like the Asian Championship or World Cups or something like that. So yeah, I don't usually have a specific count as such. But
Okay, so I wanted to speak a little about Go Sports. It was a foundation started by Abhinav Bindra, and which has been supporting you in your journey. So I'd like to know a little bit about how they've been supporting you in your journey.
So I started with them in 2018. This was after the Commonwealth Games and the Asian Championship got over. That's when I started with them. They have basically, they kind of, provided an environment around me, for me, because when I started up until 2018, I never had any support, external support or anything like that. It was always just me by myself, and my parents who used to travel with me, who used to, manage everything for me. But after starting with Go Sports, I have this thing that, yes, there are people who can support me. There are people who I can talk to if I am, going through something. So I think that was the biggest way that they helped me in my career, building that environment. And that is something that is very important for a athlete's career, because most people just assume that, becoming a good athlete, a great athlete is just training, but that's not true. You can't just keep on training without having that environment to train in. So Go Sports helped create that environment for me. And they do support me financially. It's not a major amount, but they do support me financially. They take care of all of my sports sciences, like the nutritionist, the physiotherapist, and the psychologist, and like they've helped me get in touch with the best of people in those fields.
It's an absolutely great foundation, and I like what they're doing for athletes around who aim to one day compete in the Olympics as well.
I think that's one of the best things about them, like they pick up athletes, they take in athletes who are in the starting of their career, who have that potential to grow there. They just need that environment and the support to get there.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to young girls who would want to follow the same path as you?
I think one thing, there's a lot of things that I've learned, but I think the best thing that I want to tell everybody is there will be a lot of people who say that, you cannot do it. You cannot, and this is not just for sports, it's for anything in life. People have this tendency of saying that, this is not for you. They can be very judgmental and things like that. But, you should not give in to those comments, People might tell you you're not fit for this, you shouldn't follow this, it is not a very, mainstream thing to do, so don't do it. But if you really truly have the passion for something, and if you really love it, you should never give up on it, because one day, no matter how hard it is, one day you will definitely achieve what you want to in whatever field it is that you take.
That's nice. So, out of curiosity, what is like the actual pathway of someone to become a professional rhythmic gymnast?
So it starts with, building the body first. So that's what I did. I improved my flexibility, I improved my strength, because I am honestly, a lot of people have told me, and that is kind of true, I'm not built for this sport. I was not flexible when I started. I don't have the right body type for it. It's just that it was just through my hard work and my determination and my self-discipline that I had towards this sport that helped me get to where I am. So yeah, first you need to prepare your body. You need to make sure your basics are strong. If your basics are strong, then no matter what you do, anything else you can learn really easily. So getting the fitness, getting the flexibility, and the basics of apparatus handling. These three are the most important part of the sport. And another important part is the expressions and the, what do you say? Yeah, basically expressing yourself. So that is something that should come naturally. You shouldn't be afraid when you're performing, you should be free, and you should be open when you're performing, and you should perform with your heart. That's when you see those genuine emotions when you're performing, and that's something that really attracts, not only the crowd but also the judges.
Nice. So this has been great. So I have one last question that I want to ask you about. So what is next for you? Will we one day see you in the Olympics representing India? So tell me what's your next 5 years plan? What are your
For me,
goals?
my immediate plan right now, I'm looking at the next 2 years. That is because the 2022 Commonwealth Games, the Commonwealth Games, the Asian Games, the World Championships, these three are, major tournaments that are in 2022. So that's what I am focusing on at the moment, and that's what I'm like preparing for. And this time, I'm not only looking at participation, especially in the Commonwealth Games, but I'm also looking at winning a medal.
Absolutely, and you'll have people cheering you here as well. Nice. Okay, so I think that brings it to the end of this episode. It's been a pleasure learning about your journey and about your insights about your career. I think people watching this would have learned a lot about it. And yeah, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.